Good evening, this is Tarot Illumination. It's Tuesday, 8th of August, 2023. I felt compelled to make just a little mini video. I'm not going to do any tarot readings. It's just, I got to get a few things out of my system. Basically share them, I guess you could say. Alright, let me go over here. What I noticed is this chart. Here's one of my astrodoodles, okay? What I noticed, we got some really powerful trines here, basically harmony, earth signs, Virgo and Taurus, and at the same time, at the same angles, well, during the same transit, we have these very hard squares between the Leo and the Taurus. So it made me think, wow, we're seeing both sides of a situation. And the pivot point of the situation is over here with the Taurus energy. So I looked at it, I thought, okay, there's Uranus and Taurus, there's Jupiter and Taurus. They're getting close enough together right now that they're going to influence each other. I feel that Jupiter energy will basically expand all the craziness and chaos that's coming with Uranus and Taurus. The themes that I'm noticing really specifically is global financial chaos, upheaval, and revolution in such a way that let's say, the status quo, the very, very tippity-top pinnacle of the world, money people, are terrified of the destabilization of their status quo. And at the same time, we have these amazing new developments in the world of money that could bring what I call sovereign wealth back to the individual. Instead of having to live in a world of fake money, an extremely well-crafted scheme that basically strips your wealth out of you and sends it to the elites of the elites. The most sinister and the hardest one to explain and to prove is the inflation itself. It's actually a very subtle, very powerful form of theft. And it's happening right now, and it's being accelerated and perpetrated and propagated and amplified by the elites. Because that's an act of desperation. They can't help themselves. They've basically abdicated from anything to do with empathy, compassion, love. All they care about is power, money, and control. It's driven by their lust for power, money, and control. And to get to be who they are, where they are, they have to deliberately shut off, disconnect from the healing power of love. So the folks up here become very powerful in the 3D world, but totally hollow in the world of love, multi-dimensional world of love. And so I see that where this is playing out across planet Earth right now. And we're seeing it especially as the United States plays its game with the Federal Reserve, the U.S. Treasury, and the federal government, all working as a trio to enact their very devious, very powerful, very subtle plans. And it's working. The end result is our interest rates are going up here in America, and that's shifting the whole of the global economy. The folks at the very bottom of the global economy are being devastated. I'm not going to go into explanations about how the interest rates devastate other countries outside of us, but anyway, that's what's happening. Shock waves rattling across the world with the with the most fragile economies and populations. And at the same time, we're getting these amazing revolutionary developments in the world of money, which is directly opposed to the status quo. In other words, we've talked about it before, fake money versus real money. Fake money is you know, the tokens, the bits of paper, and all the things that we see in the stock market, 401ks, IRAs, and all that stuff that they call money. And it's a lot of it is a fiction, but it's a very powerful fiction, so powerful that we believe it as fact, as reality. And then there's another version of money which is based much more on what you could call solid, tangible things like your talents, your skills, your resources, gold, silver, assets, things like, do you own your house outright? Do you own your car outright? Are you living a debt-free life? Are you living a life where you understand the global financial system and you are prospering instead of being demolished? Are you, let's say, savvy enough to know how to operate in the world of fake money so that you can accrue real money? In other words, you switch the game around, so you are now the healthy money harvesting from the fake money people. Because in general, 95%, 98% of the planet, I believe, is just ordinary folks who are being harvested to the benefit of the elites who run this fake money enterprise. So I'm seeing it all happen simultaneously, the good and the bad. And I thought, well, okay, let's look at the charts. And kaboom, there I see it. The physical realities here, Virgo, Taurus, very harmonious energies, Mars, activity, Mercury, commerce and trade, Uranus and Taurus, I just talked about all that over here. So this is these are fleeting transits, but they're solid and they're happening right now. And this is, to me, allowing us to see all the beneficial things that are going on in this world regarding just the wonders of this planet. Some of it's absolutely terrifying. You know, we're seeing all these outrageous extremes in weather. You know, things like the floods, volcanoes, hurricanes, fires, droughts, typhoons, cyclones, all happening in very extreme ways that's actually scaring hundreds of millions of people on the planet. Notably right now, China is being devastated on a massive scale. Millions of people's lives ruined by massive flooding. At the same time, up in Canada, there's hundreds and hundreds of uncontrolled wildfires reaching all the way up into the wilderness. Some people think there's arson going on. It's all very scary, it's all very beautiful simultaneously. The really scary stuff, of course, we got the transits here, the Sun and Venus. Venus, the money planet, retrograde. So we're seeing upheavals in that regard. I'm going to now highlight the thing that I've been highlighting recently because it's not going away anytime soon. But it is this axis here, which is under extreme duress. And that is the nodal axis. Okay, there's the south node, there's the north node. The north node is in Aries. I made videos about that a while back. It's about waking up and reclaiming our sovereign self and leaving behind obsolete, redundant, unhealthy relationships, especially when it comes to the previous nodal axis of Taurus, Scorpio, money, money, money. So people are living through that. I'm witnessing all sorts of examples of things that are falling apart that need to fall apart, and things that are being built that need to be built in order to claim the sovereign self. The journey is this way. The intense pressure here is on the elite. These are the 28 degree marks. That's exact. 28, 28, 28. This is an extremely acute, massive, hyper-stressful T-square between two very powerful, very significant components of personal astrology and global astrology. So you might want to examine, where does this aspect lie in your chart? It could be anywhere. Anyway, I just wanted to point this out. It's like the good things and bad things happening simultaneously. Just random stuff that came to my attention. Lev Triber sent me a couple things which were very interesting. Where was it? Oh yeah, the state of Michigan has just uncovered and revealed irrefutable evidence of massive voter fraud during that highly contested election. I'm not saying it is or isn't. I have my personal opinions, but I'm trying to stay neutral because I want this video to stay active and not be deleted or have warnings or strikes. So there's a report that just came out today. Hard, clear evidence. I thought that was very interesting. That relates to fake politics versus real politics. I just talked about the charts here, the beautiful trines versus the terrible, challenging squares, and also the beautiful, massive T-square. Now understand, this isn't pure evil or anything. You can learn and benefit tremendously from this if you're willing to, let's say, allow yourself to be guided and protected by the sacred geometry, divine inspiration, divine guidance. But you have to invite it in. The other thing about the money stuff, the United States has been downgraded, first time ever at this scale, from AAA to AA plus in terms of basically creditworthiness across the world. So what does that mean? The elites are now officially struggling, and it's being outed and released across the planet. America is no longer the premier stronghold, stable, last bastion for the rest of the world. There are other countries that have more stable, more solid financial structures than America. At the same time, the United States is playing games with the rest of the world by raising interest rates even farther. And so that's causing a lot of backlash on the rest of the planet for their economies, but it's making the American dollar quite attractive because people would start thinking, wow, I need to get into the dollar now because interest rates are high enough that I could actually make sense to get certificate of deposit. Some of them are being offered 5, 6, 7%. And anyway, you can get a certificate of deposit right now for about 4 or 5%. That's actually kind of a big deal because that hasn't happened in many, many years. So if you had like $100, you'd make 5% in the year. If you had $1,000, you'd make 50. $10,000, you'd make 500. $100,000, you'd make $5,000 in the year. If you've got big piles of money, you could actually just open a certificate of deposit, if it's big enough, and you can generate a living income just out of the CD interest. That's why some people love certificates of deposit. Here's another thing that came out. There was that creepy, nasty, dirty, scummy biolab that was discovered in somewhere, I think it was in California. And it's just been discovered today that China has a strong participation in the lab. It's a filthy lab, really nasty. It's a bioweapon lab, basically. And they also discovered that they've been receiving huge amounts of money from the United States federal government. It's all been outed. Okay? Another couple of things that came to my mind. Again, I'm looking at the green and the red here simultaneously. So there are some really, really awesome scientists that I like. And they're kind of controversial because they don't really go along with the big, so-called weather agenda, whatever they call it, Agenda 2030, and all those big political climate stories. The particular guys I like, they're suggesting that what's happening right now is, of course, there is influence from human behavior, no doubt about it, but the really big influence is the sun itself. because everything that happens on Earth here is contingent upon the sun, one way or another. And so they've shown climate patterns and charts and everything from thousands and millions of years ago and so on. And you start to realize that a huge, I don't know an exact number, but a huge percentage of the influence of what we call weather happens relative to solar patterns, solar cycles. Does the sun heat up? Does the sun cool down? How long? And so on. You get ice ages. You get the planet. There was a time when the whole of planet Earth was just covered in ice. There was a time when the whole of planet Earth was just a tropical swamp, just seething hot swamp, and everything else in between. I don't think I can do screen shares right now, but maybe I can do that on another private video or something and share that. And I personally agree, because there's definitely a correlation between the rise in temperature and there's a parallel curve to do with burning fossil fuel, and it's undeniable. Is fossil fuel burning the sole thing? Some people argue that some massive volcanoes over the last however many decades have put phenomenal amounts of moisture in the air recently, to the point where it's, precipitating out, like for example the crazy floods in China, insane flooding in China. Anyway, the controversial cycle, it's called the Milankovitch cycle, and it's all about following the behavior of the sun, the cooling, the heating, the cooling, and the heating. And they've discovered that there are regular patterns of heating and cooling of the sun, and the degrees of heating and cooling up and down are enough to influence our sensation of what the weather would be. Right now we're at a fairly sort of a midpoint level where for the last 20,000 years or so, human people have got used to a weather kind of, it's like a comfort zone where the optimal would probably be in Fahrenheit would be about 75 degrees. But it's starting to creep up a couple of degrees or something, like 1.5 degrees. And it looks like it might be going up further and further. And so we're getting things like climate migration and all that kind of stuff, because places around, places over here are getting hotter and drier. We've just had an announcement that as far back as weather records have been kept, today, this month, this year, was the hottest ever recorded in human record keeping. Now, of course, there were periods that were much hotter than today and periods much colder than today. But in terms of recorded history for weather reporting, which I don't know how long that is, like a few hundred years or a few thousand years, and they can also track it back through geology. But anyway, I can understand why people are freaking out. And you can understand also how global politicians are trying to exploit this problem for their own financial gain. But I also believe that the sun itself is a major influence on the temperature dial, going up or going down, up or down. And human beings happen to be very sensitive. Like over here in Las Vegas, if it turns 110 degrees, that's normal. If it goes up to 115, that's scary. If it goes up to 122, 23, that's starting to break thermometers and scare people. Down here in Phoenix, Arizona, 40 people are dead already in the last last 6 weeks because of heat. And it's happening all over the world. Everywhere in the northern hemisphere, where it's so-called summer, there is a lot of distress from heat, because we can only tolerate a certain amount. Above a certain number, people just die. And of course, below a certain number, people die. But it seems to be relatively easier to protect yourself from cold rather than protecting yourself from heat. So there's a lot of news going on around about how hot everything is and how this is really scary for people. It's understandable. Another thing that came to my attention, thank you Love Triber, was regarding all the chaos and theft and degradation and corruption in the United States. And one of the most obvious signs is increased violence and crime, astronomical increases in violence and crime. And for whatever reasons, I'm not going to get into it, but over here in America, right here, an event occurred at a local Smith's grocery store where some folks up at the meat counter had brought big Ziploc baggies into the store quietly, discreetly, and they went up to the meat counter, taking packages of meat, ripping the meat package open, taking the meat out, dumping it into the Ziploc, dumping that Ziploc into their carry bag, and then getting out of the store. Why are they doing this? Well, it's because they've figured out, the thieves have figured out, that a lot of the high-grade meat packages are loaded with these little microchip type things, RFID tags, that will trigger an alarm indicating theft as they try to get out of the store. A lot of big stores all over America are having serious problems with crime and theft, and they don't know what to do about it because of the political challenges. And the criminals are getting very smart. I've never heard of such a way to steal something, but you got to give it to the criminals. They're smart, figuring that out. You have to be really bold, and they know they can get away with it because of the way, again, because of the politics. So basically, everything is exactly as it should be. Everything that's bad that's happening is, in accordance with nature. Sacred geometry, and everything good that's happening is in accordance with the sacred geometry. It's beautiful, it's ugly, it's terrifying, it's joyful, all of it simultaneously. There's probably a lot of stuff that I missed as well. Wait a minute, I think there was something that I missed. Hold on. I've probably lost the links. I've lost the links. What were they? Anyway, it was. If I find them, I'll maybe make another video for you. But it was just some crazy stuff going on. Crazy stuff. It makes your jaw drop when you hear some of the stuff that comes out that people are doing. Ordinary people. People in power. All right. There we go. I'm going to check out now. I'm going to just load this up. Have a super evening. See you folks soon, all right? Thank you very much. Bye-bye.